almost never about food. It was about Tony learning how to be a better person.
When he threw himself into something, he threw himself completely.
Why am I here? Am I insane?
He was like, life's about finding a cliff we're jumping off. I'm gonna look for something feral and wild.
He was a traditional romantic.
Reality was never gonna live up to exactly how he pictured it.
Lori Woolever was Anthony Bourdain's longtime assistant and confidant. Her new book explores his time as a chef in New York, to his days traveling the world for his hit culinary and travel shows, No Reservations and Parts Unknown, all the way to his death by suicide in 2018.
The book is called Bourdain, the definitive oral biography, and Lori Woolever joins us live. Good morning.
Hi, good morning.
You know, there are so many of these shows and people trying to do these shows, and this one broke through. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think Tony had a really interesting blend of charisma and courage and humor. And then he also was a very real, very vulnerable person. And I think that those two things together, that really telegraphed on camera. I think people really saw themselves in him, and then they could also project kind of a fantasy of their own best life onto him.
You have interviews with a lot of famous chefs, a lot of his family members, his daughter. You also did an excerpt in Vanity Fair about this book, where you kind of talked about how a lot of the people in his life talked about his girlfriend before he died, and how he changed during the course of that relationship. Talk about that.
Yeah, Tony was a romantic, and he was someone who approached everything in his life with 1,000% enthusiasm. And in some cases, it was really beautiful and really, really positive. He was very, very into jujitsu. He threw himself into his work, into his writing, into being a dad, just 1,000%. And then in some cases, it was less positive. I think he was sort of obsessive in his relationships, and that is what definitely gets discussed in that Vanity Fair piece, that people just saw him almost kind of disappear into this relationship and start to make different choices in his life and start to cut people out in a way that raised some alarm bells for all of us.
He was bullied as a kid. How much did that have to do with his demons in life?
It's an interesting question. I think that it definitely set him up to be a champion for the underdog for the rest of his life. I think it probably gave him some wounds that maybe never quite healed. He was a small kid. This gets talked about a little bit in the book. Even though he was such a tall guy in adult life, he was actually quite a little kid, and he was smart and bookish. And I think there were things that set him apart from his classmates. And so I think that's possibly a wound that never quite healed, and that fueled his rebellion, fueled his interest in drugs and alcohol, and kept him kind of seeking and searching and exploring the rest of his life.
You obviously knew him very well. This had to be a hard project for you to do. What was your goal here? What did you want people to know about him? Because I feel like people probably feel like they know a lot about him already. What did you want to accomplish?
Absolutely. He was someone who I think it was easy to look at his life and the way that he lived, and especially the last 20 years of getting to travel and have, in some cases, the world's best job. And I think it's very easy to just see that and be left with a lot of questions. How could a person with such luck and such a wonderful life choose to take it? And I think by reading this book, you'll see a much more complete picture of a person who had demons, who had addiction issues, who just wanted to be loved like the rest of us, who was unsettled, and hopefully people will come away with a little bit more of a sense of how a person could get to that point in their life, and maybe a little more empathy just for humans in general, to understand there's always something more going on under the surface, even if things look really perfect right above the surface.
For more, you can check out LoriWoolever.com. She's on all the social media accounts as well, and it's Bourdain, the definitive oral biography. Thanks so much for being with us.
Absolutely. Thank you.